Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 7th Chapter, Scheduled Incarnations, Text 26. Bhume Suretara Barutha Vimarditaya Klesha Vayaya Kalaya Sita Krishna Keshaha Jataha Karissati Jananupalaksha Margaha Karmani Chatma Mohimopani Bandhanani Mohimopani Bandhanani Bhume Suretara Barutha Vimarditaya Klesha Vayaya Kalaya Shita Krishna Kesha Jata Karishyati Jananupalaksha Marga Jata Karishyati Jananupalaksha Marga Karmani Chatma Mohimopanibandhanani Bhume Suretara Barutha Vimarditaya Klesha Vayaya Kalaya Sita Krishna Kesha Yata Karishyati Jananupalaksha Marga Karmani Chatma Mohimopanibandhanani Bhume Suretara Barutha Vimarditaya Klesha Vayaya Kalaya Sita Krishna Kesha Jata Karishyati Jananupalaksha Marga Karmani Chatma Mohimopanibandhanani Bhume of the entire world Suretara other than godly persons Barutha soldiers Vimarditaya distressed by the burden Klesha miseries Vayaya for the matter of diminishing Kalaya along with his plenary expansion Sita Krishna not only beautiful but also black Keshaha with such hairs Jata having appeared Parishati would act, jana, people in general, anupalaksha, rarely to be seen, margaha, path, karmani, activities, cha, also, atma mahima, glories of the Lord Himself, upanibandhanani, in relation to. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. When the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings who have no faith in God, the Lord, just to diminish the distress of the world, descends with His plenary portion. The Lord comes in His original form with beautiful black hair. And just to expand His transcendental glories, He acts extraordinarily. No one can properly estimate how great He is. Please repeat after me. When the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings who have no faith in God, the Lord, just to diminish the distress of the world, descends with His plenary portion. The Lord comes in His original form with beautiful black hair. And just to expand His transcendental glories, He acts extraordinarily. No one can properly estimate how great He is. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse is especially describing the appearance of Lord Krishna and His immediate expansion, Lord Baladev. Both Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev are one Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is omnipotent and He expands Himself in innumerable forms and energies, and the whole unit is known as the one Supreme Brahman. Such extensions of the Lord are divided into two divisions, namely personal and differential. The personal expansions are called the Vishnu Tattvas, and the differential expansions are called the Jiva Tattvas. And in such expansional activity, Lord Baladev is the first personal expansion of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it has quite a long purport, so maybe I'll just try to go stanza by stanza. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is establishing the difference between the Vishnu Tattvas and Jiva Tattvas. It is very important to understand the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Jivas. The difference between the Lord and us. We are the living entities, the Jivas. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands in two ways. Those are known as Swamsas and Vibhinnamsas. Swamsas are His personal expansions, and the Jivas are His Vibhinnamsas. The personal expansion means He Himself expands into many other forms. The Swamsas are generally known as the incarnations. There is no difference between the Lord and his expansion. And our scriptures describe how Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of God. This point has been very beautifully explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. After describing different incarnations of the Lord, it has been pointed out that these are all expansions of the Supreme Personality of God. They are the expansions of the Lord or expansions of the expansions of the Lord. In this way the Lord expands. And these are known as amsas and kalas. Amsa means the expansion, kala means expansion of the expansion, or expansion of the expansion of the expansion. And it has been pointed out, ete changsha kala pungsha. These are the amsas and kalas, all these incarnations of the Lord. But Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. But Sri Krishna is the Swayam Bhagavan. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of God. In Dasavatar Stotram also, the same point has been established. Actually, this Dasavatara Stotram has been taken from the Kalki Puran, the beginning of Kalki Puran, describing the incarnation of Kalki. This Dasavatara Stotram has been explained, and ultimately the 10th incarnation is Kalki Avatar. And so Jayadev also took that Dasavatara Stotram as the invocation of his Gita Govindam, Mahakavya. And there we see different incarnations of the Lord have been established. First, Meena, the fish incarnation, then the tortoise incarnation, then the Varaha or boar incarnation, then Narsimha incarnation. So in this way 10 different incarnations have been established. But after each stanza, it has been pointed out, Keshava Dhrita. Keshava, Krishna has assumed that form. Keshava Dhrita, Meena Sharira. Keshava Dhrita, Kurma Sarira. Keshava Dhrita, Varaha Rupa. Keshava Dhrita, Narahari Rupa. Keshava Dhrita, Vamana Rupa, and so forth. So Keshava Dhrita, Krishna assumed that form. And it's quite interesting to note that in this verse also, Krishna has been identified as the personality with beautiful black hair. Sita Krishna Kesha. So we see the similarity, Kesha and Keshava. The one who has beautiful black hair is Keshava. Keshava Dhrita. That is Krishna, the Govindam Adi Purusham. In Brahma Samhita also, the same point has been established. Govindam, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of God. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And in Brahma Samhita it has been established very beautifully about the Amsa expansions of the Lord, Swamsas. As Deeparchireva hi dasantaram abhupetya. Deepayate vibrita hetu samana dharma. Just as Deepa, just as a lamp is lit by one original lamp, and when the lamp is lit, it gives out the same amount of light and heat. Vibrita hetu samana dharma, equal potency. But at the same time, the original lamp is the lamp that lit the other lamp. So in this context, we can point out that Krishna is that original lamp, and other incarnations are other different lamps. It's just an analogy. Analogy, we cannot take them literally. The analogy is to be taken in a specific context. It's an example. Doesn't mean that Krishna is a lamp. Through the lamp, the example has been given. But Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that original Supreme Personality of Godhead appears once in a day of Brahma. That also has been very elaborately established in our scriptures, how once in a day of Brahma, which comprises of 1000 Chaturjugas, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, comes. And so here, while describing the scheduled incarnations, Krishna's identity is being established, but in a different way. It's pointed out that Krishna is the origin of all incarnations. And his activities are most wonderful. And his activities cannot be perceived with our mundane sense perceptions. So, in this way, the Vishnu Tattvas and Jiva Tattvas have been established here. The Vishnu Tattvas are the Supreme Personality of Godhead's expansions, direct expansions. The Vishnu Tattvas are non-differing from Krishna. Like, say, Krishna expands as Balaram. Now, there is no difference between Krishna and Balaram. It's the same personality. But expansion, the first expansion. Then there is the expansion in the form of Narayan. There are expansions as Sri Ramchandra. There is expansion as Varaha, Kurma, Meena, as I described. There is no, even though the Lord appears as a fish, but still he is the Supreme Personality of God. It is not that because he appeared as a fish, his potency has been diminished or his ability is lacking. No. Even though he may come as a fish, even though he may come as a tortoise, even though he may come as a boar, but still he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is what the Swamsas are. Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki, Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishakha Devi Ki, Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki. Whereas the Vibhinnamsas, the Jivas, they are minute parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of God. We are the Vibhinnamsas. Like qualitatively, we are one. The Lord is conscious, we are conscious. The difference is that he is absolute and we are minute. In this respect, an example has been given, is the ocean, the example of ocean and what a drop of water. An ocean is also water, and a drop of water is also water. Qualitatively, the qualities of water is there in a drop as well as in the ocean. But quantitatively, the ocean is the source of all water, whereas a drop is just a minute part of that water. Similarly, we all are qualitatively one with the Lord. The Lord is conscious, The Lord is able to act according to His will. The Lord is completely independent. Similarly, we are conscious and we also have some independence, but very minute. Our consciousness is minute, whereas His consciousness is unlimited. Our independence is minute, whereas His independence is absolute. He has His will, He has His desire. The difference is that He has the ability to manifest His will according to His desire. Whatever He wants happens. Whereas our will, our ability to administrate our will and fulfill our desire is very, very little. And often they are thwarted. Often they are obstructed. So we are minute, He is absolute. Qualitatively we are one, but quantitatively we are different. So this point is very, very important to understand. We should not think that Krishna is one like us. No. When we see His activities, we can see. When we hear about His activities from the scriptures, then we can see how inconceivable is His potency. Whereas we are very, very minute and very limited. But quantitatively we are the same. He is conscious, He has desire. We are conscious, we also have desire. He wants to enjoy, we also want to enjoy. We want to lord over, He lords over, and we also want to lord over. But our ability, the degree of our ability differs. And that is the difference between the Swamsas and Bibhinnamsas. Go to the next stanza. In the Vishnu Puran, as well as in the Mahabharata, both Krishna and Baladev are mentioned as having beautiful hair, even in their advanced age. The Lord is called Anupalaksha Margaha, or in still more technical Vedic term, Abang Manasa Gochara. One who is never to be seen or realized by the limited sense perception of the people in general. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.25, it is said by the Lord, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samabritaha. In other words, He reserves the right of not being exposed to anyone and everyone. Only the bona fide devotees can know Him by His specific symptoms. And out of many, many such symptoms, one symptom is mentioned here in this verse, that the Lord is Shita Krishna Kesha, or one who is observed always with beautiful black hair. So these are the physical symptoms that has been described here in this verse. And that is the particular symptom of the personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita it is stated that although He is the oldest personality among all living entities, He always looks like a new youthful boy. That is the characteristic of a spiritual body. The difference between spiritual body and material body is, spiritual body is Sat, that is eternal, constant. Whereas the material body is Asat, or transient, changing. Our bodies are constantly changing, from boyhood to youth to old age. When one is young, he is full of vitality, his body is so beautiful. But when one becomes old, that beauty is gone. His healthy masculine form now is withered into a wrinkled, emaciated, hunched, staggering old body. And that's the case with every living entity. If one lives long enough to become old, what will be his physical condition? His body will become emaciated and old and withering. But that is not the case with the spiritual body. Not only Krishna's spiritual body is eternally youthful, every body is spiritually, everyone is eternally youthful. Sometimes we hear and also feel that in spite of becoming old, internally we actually feel youthful. Although the body becomes old, but internally an old man also feels youthful. Now why? Because spiritually he is an youthful person. As long as he doesn't identify himself with his body, he will remain youthful. What to speak of Krishna? Krishna is Navajovanancha, Navakishore, eternally youthful. And not only eternally youthful, his youth is just a budding youth, just between 15 and 16. That is his eternal form. Adang Purana Purusham Navajovanancha. Although he is the Adyam or Adi Purusha, the oldest, the first of all living entities, Adyam, Purana Purusham, but his form is Navajovanancha. Sometimes less informed individuals imagine that God must be an old man. Especially this misconception is quite prevalent in Christianity. They do not have the proper understanding of the God's form. Therefore, when the time came to display the identity of the Lord, especially during the Renaissance period, when the artists like Rembrandt and Raphael painted the Lord's form, they painted him as an old man with flowing long beard and wrinkled, skinned old man. They thought that since God is the original Supreme Father, he must be old. But we are fortunate that we have extensive information about the Lord from our scriptures. It has been described how he looks like. In our Vedic scriptures there are such beautiful descriptions of the Lord's form, and never ever he has been described as an old man. When Krishna was in the battle of Kurukshetra, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was 120 years old at that time. But do we see him as an old man? No, he is eternally youthful. Shyamang Tribhanga Lalitang Niyata Prakasham. His form is beautiful, bluish complexion like the fresh monsoon cloud. Shyamang Tribhanga Lalitam, and Venum Kanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham. He plays his flute, his eyes are beautiful like lotus petals, Aravinda Dalayataksham. Barhavatam samasitam budasundaram. He wears a peacock feather on his head, and his anga, his body, has the complexion of sama asita, like blackish monsoon cloud. So these descriptions are there, and from that we can understand how God looks like. And there is no need for any kind of speculation or imagination. The material body is symptomized by birth, death, old age and disease. But the spiritual body is conspicuous by the absence of those symptoms. Material bodies always follow these four symptoms: birth, old age, disease and death. Everybody, if he lives long enough, will go through these four phases. Everybody is born, everybody grows to certain age and then eventually becomes old. Then the body becomes diseased, afflicted by all kinds of diseases, and then finally one dies. This is a symptom of material body. But that's not the case with spiritual body. The spiritual body, the spirit soul is never born. The spirit soul never grows old. The spirit soul is never afflicted with this kind of disease: cholera, typhoid, chicken pox and so forth. The spirit soul suffers from one disease, that is called bhava rog, the material disease. When the spirit soul is entangled in the material nature, that is the disease of the spirit soul. Spirit soul doesn't belong to this material nature, but when the spirit soul begins to identify himself as a part of this material nature, that is his disease. And that disease is caused by the separation from the Lord. Isolation from the Lord causes that disease. Therefore, what is the cure for the disease? Attraction to the Lord. When we become isolated from the Lord, we suffer from a disease called materialistic disease. But when we become connected to the Lord, then that disease disappears. That is why it has been advised time and time again to become connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to become cured from this disease of the soul. Living entities who reside in the Vaikuntha Loka in eternal life and bliss have the same type of spiritual body without being affected by any signs of old age. It is described in the Bhagavatam, Canto 6, that the party of Vishnu Dutas who came to deliver Ajamil from the clutches of the party of Jamaraj appeared like youthful boys, corroborating with the descriptions of this verse. It is ascertained thus that the spiritual bodies in the Vaikuntha Lokas, either of the Lord or of the other inhabitants, are completely distinct from material bodies in this world. Therefore, when the Lord descends from that world to this world, he descends in a spiritual body of Atma Maya, or internal potency, without any touch of Bahiranga Maya, or external material energy. The allegation that the impersonal Brahma appears in the material world by accepting material body is quite absurd. Therefore, the Lord, when he comes here, has not a material body, but a spiritual body. The impersonal Brahma Jyoti is only the glaring effulgence of the body of the Lord, and there is no difference in quality between the body of the Lord and the impersonal ray of the Lord called Brahma Jyoti. Now the question is, why the Lord, who is omnipotent, comes here to diminish the burden created upon the world by the unscrupulous kingly order. So the question arises, if the Lord is omnipotent, why does he have to come here to get rid of these undesirable elements? Actually, the Lord doesn't need to come here to kill the demons. He can very easily kill the demons by his agents, like Mahamaya and the other demigods. Actually, we can see no matter how powerful one is, if the supply of air is cut, then he will die. So those who are controlling the air, they can cut the supply of the air and kill the demons. Sometimes the demons are killed like that. Like Durga killed so many demons, like Mahishasura demon, and in such demons are killed by Maya, the agent of the Lord. But here it has been pointed out that certainly the Lord does not need to come here personally for such purposes, but he actually descends to exhibit his transcendental activities in order to encourage his pure devotees who want to enjoy life by chanting the glory of the Lord. The Lord descends in order to give his association to his pure devotees, and also to make people recognize how wonderful he is. Just by hearing his wonderful activities, people will become attracted towards him and become his devotees. That is why the Lord descends. In Bhagavad Gita also Krishna pointed out that he comes for paritranaya sadhunam and vinashaya cha duskritam. The main purpose has been described first. Why he comes? Paritranaya sadhunam. In order to give pleasure to his devotees. And the vinashaya cha duskritam is the secondary reason of his coming. When he comes, then he gets rid of the troublemakers. But the real purpose of his coming is to paritranaya sadhunam, to give pleasure to his devotees by rescuing them from the distressful condition created by the demons. And while doing that, he annihilates the demons. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:13-14, it is stated that the Mahatmas, great devotees of the Lord, take pleasure in chanting the activities of the Lord. Mahatmanas tu mang partha daiving prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananna manasya. So that is the purpose why he comes. Mahatmanas tu mang partha daiving prakritim ashrita. The Mahatmas, the saintly personalities, are protected by the Lord's internal potency. And what do? Bhajanti ananna manasa. With undeviated attention, they serve the Lord. Knowing him, gyatva bhutadimishvara, that he is the supreme Lord, the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme source of all living beings, all living entities. All Vedic literatures are meant for turning one's attention towards the Lord and his transcendental activities. All Vedic literatures have this one purpose, to make living entities turn their face towards the Lord or become attracted by the Lord. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. Krishna also is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita that in all the Vedas, He alone is to be known. All the Vedas are simply describing one thing, and that is to turn our face towards the Lord. Thus the activities of the Lord in his dealing with worldly people create a subject matter for discussion by his pure devotees. So in this way, the pure devotees of the Lord get a chance, get an opportunity to speak and glorify him and discuss about him. And that is how they derive their pleasure. The devotees derive their pleasure is simply sing the glories of the Lord. Satatam kirtayanto mam jatantascha dridhabratam. With great attention and care, they sing the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satatam, constantly. And namasantascha mang nittam. They, all the time, they simply remain submissive to him. So this is the symptom of a Mahatma, a great soul. There are two types of people. You can say three types of people. Yeah. One is a Mahatma and the other is Duratma. One is a great soul and the other is a wicked soul. Who is a wicked soul? Who doesn't accept the Lord. They are wicked, demoniac. But the third category is the ones, those who are in between. They're neither Mahatmas nor Duratmas. They're innocent. They do not know. That's why they haven't submitted themselves to the Lord. But when they get to know about the glory of the Lord, then they do submit. Then they become his devotees. And that is why it's important that the glory of the Lord is broadcast all over the world so that people can get to know him and thus become his devotees. To create an opportunity for those innocent people. They are not bad, but they are innocent, they are ignorant, they don't know. Therefore, it is important that we provide the informations to them. And in most cases, practically with all of us, that is the case. There was a time when we are not aware of the Lord or we are not devotees of the Lord. Although some of us may have been Duratmas, the wicked souls, but fortunately by getting to know about the Lord's glory, we have taken shelter of the Lord and became his devotees and trying to make advancement in our spiritual life. So the ultimate consideration is whether after hearing about him we will submit unto him. So in the seventh canto of the second chapter, the seventh chapter of the second canto, the scheduled incarnations of the Lord has been described, and especially in this verse, Krishna's appearance with Balaram has been described. And it will go on to next few verses also. So I'll stop now. Thank you all very much. Does anybody have any question? Yes, Arati.
You mentioned that at the first Krishna was 120 years old. We know that Arjuna was similar in age. Was he an old man at the time, or was he also youthful?
Who?
Arjuna, also youthful like Krishna.
He was also youthful. We can see, but not as youthful as Krishna. He looks little, when you see pictures of Arjuna, he looks a little more robust, little more mature. Whereas Krishna is very delicate and tender, very youthful.
Even though they were similar age.
Yeah, they're of the similar age. Yeah. Krishna's form just grows up to, he reaches his youthful form and that's it. He always remains in that. Like Krishna has been, at least his Bhoma Leela, his pastimes on this earth, was enacted 5,000 years ago. Do we ever see a painting or form of Krishna where he looks like an old man? Never. He's always youthful. Okay, any other question? Jamnati?
Actually, Maharaj, I was just thinking that one of this or not, but we have explained this many times. When you were saying that the spirit soul doesn't suffer from birth, old age, disease, and death, it only suffers when it begins to identify itself with the body.
Yeah, the spirit soul is never born. But when a spirit soul takes up a new body, when the body is born, because the spirit soul is identifying with the body, we, the spirit souls, are thinking that I was born. I'm growing old. Right? It was so wonderful when I was young. Right? And someday I'll die. Right? So because we are identifying with the body, we are perceiving the happenings of the body to be happening to us. Does it?
Yes, Maharaj, I was just wondering then, the soul, I am aware of this, what you said, so it's nice to hear again, because obviously we forget every day. But originally the soul was separate from this material body, and it was because of our desire to want to enjoy Krishna facilitating it with this, and we were sent with this programmed mind that relate to this body. How did that happen?
That is, anyway, it's a long story. I'll try to put it in short. It has been described in this way that Krishna bohirmukh hoiya bhogavansha kare nikotastha maya tare japotiya thare. When a living entity turns his face away from Krishna, then Maya, who is standing close by, nikatastha, grabs it. Right? Now how does Maya grab? Maya acts in a very subtle way. Maya doesn't act in a gross way. Maya's actions are very, very subtle. The moment a living entity turns his face away from Krishna and looks towards, now consider what is away from Krishna. There are only two aspects, either Krishna or Krishna's external energy. When you are looking towards Krishna, you are with Krishna in the spiritual world, in Krishna's internal potency. But when you look away from Krishna, then what happens? You are looking at Krishna's external energy. Now what's the quality of the external energy? The quality of the external energy is that it's inferior, and the jivas are superior because it's coming from Krishna's superior energy. Aparayamitasthanyam prakriting viddhi me param jiva bhutang mahabaho jajedam dharjate jagat. Beyond this, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that beyond this inferior material energy, aparayam, apara, inferior, separated. Prakriting viddhi me param, there is a para prakriti, superior energy, and jiva bhutang, the jivas, the living entities, the spirit souls, are coming from there. Now see, by nature, we are superior, the spirit soul is superior, and the material nature is inferior. Now when a superior personality comes across inferior, then what happens? What is the natural outcome? When a superior person comes in contact with inferior persons. No, how does the superior feel? He wants to lord over, right? They are inferior, so naturally he wants to lord over, right? So, in this way, he gets the first covering of false ego. I am the Lord and Master of whatever I purvey. Isn't that the false ego? So in this way, he gets the first covering of false ego. Why false ego? His identity is transformed. What is his original identity? He is the eternal servant of the Lord. But now he is thinking that he is the Lord and Master. Instead of becoming a servant, he wants to be the Lord and Master. So isn't that the false identity? So that he gets the first covering of the false ego. Then he begins to plan how he is going to enjoy this material nature. So that gives him the second covering of intelligence. And then, through the mind, his consciousness flows constantly towards the material direction. So in this way, through false ego, intelligence and mind, he gets his subtle body. These are the three subtle elements of nature. And he develops his subtle bondage or subtle body. And then nature, Prakriti, awards him a gross body made of 5 different elements. This is this body. And he is securely captivated and imprisoned in this prison house of material nature.
You have explained this before, but I'm always wondering where did this happen? Because he gets this body before he comes to the material world. But then when we're saying he's coming in contact and he's got this desire to roam it over, but he hasn't yet entered the material world. So which space is this happening in this formation of the layers?
It happens in his consciousness.
That's when he saw, when he turned away, at that point the process begins.
The whole thing is a matter of consciousness. It's happening in our consciousness, right? And of course, there is a geographical dimension, but the original happening is in consciousness. Like for example, like when you are dreaming that you are in a beautiful place, a beautiful garden full of flowers and fruits, beautiful music and beautiful people are dancing. Where is it happening? You're dreaming. Where is it happening? It's happening in your consciousness, in your mind. But then when you wake up, what happens? Is it there? No. Now, that is the case of our individual dream. Right? But there is a thing called collective dream. We are in a collective dream, state of collective dream. We are dreaming, but the dream is like when you are here, you are dreaming the same thing. When I am here and all of us are here, we are dreaming the same thing. Right? We are dreaming in a 3-dimensional way. But the difference between our dream and this material nature is that our dream is individual, this dream is collective. Right? And this dream is collective because it is a dream of Mahavishnu. It all happened because Mahavishnu's glance towards Prakriti. And whoever is tuned into Mahavishnu's dream is going through the same dream. Therefore, the best thing is, instead of considering that this is the reality caused by where I am the center, go into the root of that dream, go into Mahavishnu, and see that how it is all his divine arrangement. And that is the first step towards becoming free from the material bondage. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I'll stop now. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.